Hey, it is your buddy, Peace and Harmony with you here today. Much love going out to all the beautiful, empowered harmonizers. We are zooming in and focusing in on a really important, sort of all encompassing concept or discussion here today. And that is really, how do you liberate yourself? How do you free yourself from incongruent states, states of apathy or low motivation? How do you get rid of sort of that self-doubt or inhibition or block in your body, your thoughts, your energy field, sort of that resistance to moving forward? Or what a lot of, people in the community will say letting go, but it's really like a resistance. It's like, I don't want to. If we look at how do you release, how do you overcome anxiety and depression, especially in the midst of a pandemic? So it's kind of like a great Titanic, if you will, where all of a sudden we're cruising along and then we get news of this pandemic that sort of interrupted our flow, if you will. And we all know the surmise of the Titanic. You can go and watch the movie with Kate Winslet, or Kate Beckinsale, I'm sorry, but I mean, I've seen it in the black and white and in the color, and it's kind of like the pandemic is where it is. It's kind of like ship was sailing along, and how do you keep that same cruise altitude going on? How do you still keep happy, buoyant, and not filled with anxiety, fear, and doubt, especially after an experience like with the pandemic, whether you've had a loss of relationships, a loss of connection, either in your family, your workplace, or other settings where you would just go to socialize and such. Maybe it's impacted your income. Maybe it's impacted a lot of other things, but namely your energy state, like how you feel about yourself, where the world is headed, and how things are going to go and end up for you. So it gets a lot of people sort of freaked out, over palpitating, their thought process and their being, and sort of not being on kind of a right or corrective path, what you might call the great reset of this pandemic. And, how do you liberate yourself from those very doldrum sort of feelings, meaning apathy? I don't care. I'm too defeated. It'll never get better. I don't know what to do from here. For all, it's just, and then oftentimes a lot of connection that you used to have that was energizing you is now gone. And a lot of people that's gone without really returning in the same manner. So you have to realize that there is a reframing in order. When we come off of something like we have to get the seriousness of what it means for you and your family, with this pandemic, and take a moment, like in the privacy of these videos, to actually actualize what it is, with the impact that it has done for you personally. Because oftentimes, no one is going to say, hey, how are you doing? Just checking in. How is the pandemic impacting you financially, emotionally, psychologically, spiritually, relationship-wise, or just overall being happy? So Abraham Lincoln, we are only about as happy as we make our minds up to be. Oh, wow. His birthday is coming up. We still celebrate it to this day. A gentleman in the 1800s born in Illinois, very important president to the United States history, and very significant fellow on our currency, basically state, you can take it from this guy that he was trustworthy, that he is living from his higher power, so if we look at that, in other words, emancipation, we're going to let these slaves free. It's not right to hold our brothers captive. And that's sort of like what the pandemic or a lot of relationships have become like, or illnesses that give you that sort of held back, I'm not actualizing myself, or I'm separated really from all that my potential is like wiring me up to be, and I'm not getting the right access, the right information, or something is withholding it. This is what inner resistance will do. It'll cause you to live a life of tension, anxiety that is abnormal. So we talk a lot on which is I would say now with the pandemic, because so many things are changing. Your access, fear, are you going to get sick? Is there going to be another variant? And a lot of people have become anesthetized or numbed out to the severity of this. So I think it's important to realize that a lot of this now has you very much in a certain maybe structure, which is not in your best interest to help to provide you the tools to be happy. So if that's not the case, you have to look in your environment, your relationships, your setting, and you have to really remove, or what they say, let go of those things which are holding you back or weighing down, and having the courage to look at that. So as we were saying here in previous videos, even though I don't want to admit it, what I really need to work on is, and then you list like 1 through 10 or 1 through 20. And if you just allow that to come forward, you can just make up anything. What I really need to work on is, it can be traveling more. It can be eating healthier. It can be organizing your drawers. It can be, following up with your health. It could be taking a workshop. It could be getting back to your optimal happiness, which should be a chronic. Your happiness should be a chronic and ongoing situation that you should be able to access. Unfortunately, in the digital age, society is requiring you to set up a digital representation of yourself. What is your username, your password, your fingerprint, your face, your voice recognition? It's just, and they use all sorts of information, your date of birth. What was your car back in the 70s? Okay, you're you. Let's get going. How can I help you? Like, until you've gone through, a lot of these questioning security, then you can get to your you. And so there's a lot of layers to this, which are required and then set up in the inhibiting, namely that of fear. So you have to understand, like Jim Carrey has said at one of his speeches, fear is going to play a role in your life. You get to decide how much. So if you look at, Jim Carrey and what he has said there, fear is going to play a role in your life. There is going to be fear. It's not abnormal. You're not a less than person because you're not perfect, or you're afraid or anxious or depressed, or you don't feel that you're sort of on your right path. Part of you is still not getting it, or you've got that procrastination list where it might be sort of gnawing at you, or it would just be better if you looked at it and tackled it from a comfortable position and learn how to get comfortable looking at the uncomfortable, and looking then at assessing at the judgment that you have installed within, like, this is too difficult, I don't know how to do this, I shouldn't be doing this, my time is worth more. Well, then you have to look at those things. John Maxwell, his laws of leadership, the law of the lid. Every leader will be able to get a third party, or really, if you think about it, like he was talking about the McDonald's brothers who started the McDonald's change, and they became successful, very well to do, but then another entity came in and made it more widespread and global and really took it to hugely profitable levels, of course, McDonald's. But it's the law of the lid. In other words, if you can look at then a third party to assist you with areas that you feel you are frustrated in or lacking. So if you feel, and then get a sense of groundedness or comfort with looking at it. So a lot of people get uncomfortable looking at certain things because it might be painful, or it might mean, they feel that they will never work through it, or, they have this fear of that they can't process it, when that's when you really need to get comfortable with getting and looking at these things. So it's very important to sensitize yourself. Like in the book that I'm working on, it is not out yet. And yes, if you like this material, please do hit the like button, and please subscribe if you like more content like this. We are just sort of back and at it here at the Peace and Harmony House studio. So thank you for tuning in again. We have a lot of exciting content that is in the works, that is in the pipes line, that is in the rafters, that is all about this topic. Really, because you really need to get a foothold. You really need to get a heel in. You really need to get well heeled about this, well shoed. And these are all, like when I studied English, writers would use these phrases, and I'm like, oh, what does that mean? Like, oh, that gentleman is well heeled. In other words, he's well put together. He's good from head to toe, but from the heel up. He has made himself a self-made man, a self-made woman. In other words, they're grounded. They have their footing. They know where things are headed, and they have a certain confidence. They've worked through some things, and then they know what they can handle, and they're suited up and show up. So it's the suiting up. In other words, what do you need to do then to make yourself comfortable with looking at this? In other words, even though I don't want to admit it, what I really need to work on is, and this is just for you, this is not anyone else telling you, this is not a boss, this could be your higher self. It's to realize that there's other parts of you that if you can answer these questions without a solicitor or without a criticism or a criticizer, which is usually wanting the problem that creates that tension or divide. Fear, I think, is usually based on that judgment and that divide. There is a fear way of looking at it. Either you're going to, I can't, I'm going to be less than, and I'm not well heeled, So you have to really think this through when you talk about, okay, now that you know your list, okay, this is the exciting stuff, because it could be things that you're hiding from yourself for months or decades. Things like working on a new relationship, picking up the golf club, working on some other physical therapeutic movements like yoga, that all the things that you can get so much info here. Chair yoga. If you're now working remote from home, how can you maximize your time? How can you use your reset to actually expand and liberate yourself without all the trappings that contribute to anxiety and depression? Oftentimes, because if everything, and if you look at it, a lot of people have then found themselves out of touch, out of communication. Everything is through the phone, online, a touchless society, your digital self. As we talk here in the Peace and Harmony, you are a physical, organic, kinesthetic being. You are energy. You are electric. You do have a heart, which means you do have care. You do have trust. You do have sort of the seed of passion there. But if what weighs on heavy is judgment and these thought processes of fear, if you're spooning fear, if you've got a beautiful hot fudge sundae, and instead of ice cream, you're putting on if you could put on, you're putting on fear instead of melted hot fudge or something soothing, or this is delicious or soothing, or I've got the energy now, I feel better now to look at this. So it's merely a matter of getting a little bit of those viewpoints back into resonance with your being and being okay with you. What was that peace and harmony? It's if it's okay with you for you to feel okay in this setting. So you have to kind of take a step back. Beatles, Get Back. Maybe that was a song about immigration. We're not going there. We're talking about the personal you. And if you can, get back to you for a moment, the authentic you, the sort of one that has a little bit of okayness. If you have found that there's certain elements of your life that are you don't like, or relationships that are lacking, or situational states where you feel that you're not maximizing. With this pandemic, you can really become easily distracted by all that's going on, and lose center, meaning lose what's important to you. Fear keeping you away from visiting people, fear grounding you down. Fear will weigh on you kinesthetically. The amygdala, it sets the fight or flight In other words, brace yourself. Like literally you have a kinesthetic physiological reaction in your body. And if you stay in that fear state, it'll become very debilitating. It'll become very exhausting. It'll, require some time to recoup and recover from. You are depleting your body of restful energy. You're setting it on idle and sort of burning up energy in fear, because fear will burn a lot of energy up in you that could be used for other things. It can be used to be alchemized, just like, your money can be used to buy something healthful and beneficial for you, or your money can be used for something unhealthy or unbeneficial for you. And sometimes time is the greatest teacher to show you that lesson, what is real and what is real. But there are going to be many distractions from you learning your lesson, because many people may profit or get ahead from you not learning your lesson. In other words, if you stay in a state of fear or distraction, this can be a positive state. For who? For newspapers, for advertising, for big corporate giants, because fear sells newspapers. And by the way, here on the Peace and Harmony channel, click the like button, a lot of like button, and share and subscribe and donate, because people are like, Peace and Harmony, you've been on the channel for some time. It always wonders me why you don't have 1 million viewers right now. Well, my title is Peace and Harmony. That doesn't maybe sell a ton of clicks or likes, but it is the content. It is fear that sells. So if you, if you pass by a newspaper stand or a newspaper article and they're telling you about mass shootings, death, homicide, loss, all these extreme things, or an extreme weather condition, that is going to get your attention. Okay, that is distraction. That gets you in that reactive state, and that's where they have you. So you have to sort of unplug, get back to where you once belong. The Beatles, get back a little bit, means stop that tension and get back, so you can reassess your road that you're on. I did a great painting that I when I used to live in this wonderful studio that I could do some oil paintings in. And one of my favorite is, it just had impressionist green with brown, apparently mud, but it's like every day you have a new beginning. And I just love that painting. I wish I knew where it was. Someone probably has it, but it's literally the start of a path was this painting that I did. It's one of the paintings I was happy with, but because the colors really came through, true to earth color, and then the greenery around really came through and bursting forth with lush life and inviting in something healthy and trusting and kind of encouraging, versus other paths that might have you caught up in a trap, such as trying to belong to a pathologically sick society, family situation, toxic, or what is causing you too much fear that you don't know how to sort of detach from. This can be really when you find yourself in your situations or settings that are not in your best interest, and you don't know how to ungrasp from and then latch onto something else. So it reminds me of when in the book that I'm working on, you really need to set yourself up for success. What was that, Peace and Harmony? You really need to prepare yourself for success. So you need to sort of get back, like the Beatles say, let's get back a step. Okay, within you, meaning if there's something you've been procrastinating on or truly, truly fearful about, I don't want, this causes tension, this causes unhappiness or disease and dishealth, or there's something out of balance. You have to realize that there is generally a fear, an anger, a judgment, or a hate that is then running or cycling through you, which will burn energy from you and cause you eating unhealthy, all the other unhealthy habits, eventually unhealthy relationships, because unhealthy mood states will promulgate more of the same, the law of attraction, the law of focus. So if that's sort of shaped and molded and always put in front of you, then distractions are going to rule your being. Fear is going to run your being. You're not sort of in it from the inside out. The locus of control is within versus without. That's a psychology concept. You really have to set yourself up. So you have to prepare yourself. So when we talk here about sort of rehabilitating, recovering, and liberating your senses, you realize you're going to it's going to be new behaviors that you're going to visualize. And do you truly want it? Do you want a miracle in your life? Like, you really have to say, I really, even though I don't know what it is, that's the story of the poet, is that they can write because they know that it's already there, and then they can pull it out. So with you, do you know enough that you want to feel a little bit better? Do you know this? Are you truly don't like showing up to work afraid, fearful? Other shoe might drop. You've got all sorts of things going on and you can't talk about it. And all these distractions have prevented you from really truly looking at it and working on it and getting stable. It's like getting, caught in a mental cloud, or sort of undeliberate thinking. And unconscious thinking, or unaware, or unmindful thinking, which can be just merely a habit that you have going on, that you are not aware of, you are not cognizant of. So we need to reframe that and say, my anxiety is just really a quest for knowing. It's a request for more. It's a request for the right information. It's a request for security and stability, and to know that that's okay. And what's holding you back from that oftentimes can be fear itself, which can involve a lot of guilt, a lot of other states, anger, disappointment, feeling inadequate. So we have to kind of look and get back to all the other elements at play there that can be holding you back, because chances are they've been like an emotional cummerbund, sort of keeping you armored for years, if not decades, and not dealing with. So it's like, maybe you find yourself after a certain relationship or having kids, and you're really sort of in either, you're in between sort of stages where you want to go on the up and up, not on the down and down, or you don't want to just plateau. You want to be liberated. You want to be free. Oftentimes you want to be free from that structure of judgment, of having to prove yourself or impress just for success. In other words, you have to be inauthentic, go inorganic, go fake a fallacy or something that was really beyond your better sensibility or knowing, that you got sort of drafted into, or brought into, or sort of dragged into without your knowing, and you inadvertently tried to make the best of it, but it resulted in a lot of procrastination, or you weren't able to use the law of the lid. In other words, when we hit that feeling of plateau, or I'm not sort of getting where I want to go, then you have to look for that which is outside of you, which you can then associate with, which can then drum up and bring to life that which is the same within you. Educare, to bring out. So when you surround yourself people who are brilliant, who are genius, who are liberated in their thinking, and you're in their presence, you also, by virtue of that sort of energetic congruency, and the Indian have a term for that, which is kind of like, it's a bonding, it's a healing thing. It's generally done in person. It's the feeling that I've got a friend, Carly Simon, I've got a friend, and it's that feeling that I've got, and then you feel secure. So it's just like the difference if you find yourself in a car in a parking lot and you've got to go to a very important meeting, and you did not listen to the news and it's raining like you know what out, cats and dogs, and you don't have an umbrella. You got to open up that door. You got to go out there. You don't have anything. You did not think it through. You were not set up for success. You weren't prepared. So you went into that meeting, shirt soaking or whatever it is, hair ruined, maybe your papers weren't put together. How many of you have been in those meetings or been with people in those meetings? You're like, we're showing up and you're getting off the train and you don't have these documents like put into folders. They are in anxiety. They are in depression. These are not your good leaders. These will create fear. In other words, what I'm looking up to, I am not ready. So that is just flawed or fear-based thinking. So it is, if we're getting back to the well-heeled gentleman, Abraham Lincoln, whoever else you might look up to, who you feel is well-heeled, put together from the ground up. Do you see what I'm saying? So meaning, i.e. you, what you have felt, what you have experienced, but that oftentimes, which has been the subject of attack or neglect, or for want, not wanting to validate or support. So also the human body, if you understand the reframing, that if you are also not supported, so not even, so we talk about like narcissistic or psychopathic relationships or entities. So if you are not supported in that relationship, whether it be a family, an employer, a marriage, you are not heard out, you are not supported, or you feel this lack of support, your body will also receive this as an attack. So even though it's not being attacked, it is the void of that. So it's like the void of a very important component like food, water, nutrition, like protein. So but it's an emotional need. It's an emotional nutrient. It's a spiritual nutrient. We have these things. And you will feel its lack when you don't have it. A lot of people turn to athletic greens, butcher box, the keto diet, paleo-centric. I mean, whatever it is, you need to see what makes you tick. But namely, you need to stop with the distractions. You need to have an old-fashioned sit down. It's okay to take a breath, redo it. Reinvent yourself for real, not how it's meant to impress or what's distracted or what looks good from the outside in, because oftentimes that's what's depleting. And not having enough recognition of the good within will cause that fear or depleted state. So if you have found yourself without recognition or validation and you think that that's okay to go mentally starving, maybe you got this from your job and your job is now remote and you're no longer getting that acknowledgement or validating. So you find yourself sort of not becoming your best, or you're finding, that you're not as together as you would like, or you're not really moving or, physically feeling good or empowered, meaning you're able to have energy. And you need to pay attention to that because you don't need to be needlessly suffering. Abraham Lincoln, we are as happy as we are about as happy as we make our minds up to be. And Eleanor Roosevelt also said, you are, what did she say? So she's got a very important fear. You are only about as unhappy as you, I'm going to get this quote, because it's important, her statement, she's got famous quotes. These are famous because they are effective. They are famous because they work. They are famous because the people get it. They are famous because the people want it. So you have to find yourself as a people, a human. You are not a digital assimilation. You are not just something on a computer alike. You are your writing, you are your feelings, you are your needs, and you have to realize where this subtle deprivation is coming on, is coming from. And as as Eleanor Roosevelt and her fight for human rights, you have to find yourself sort of advocating within and sort of becoming your own activist, if you will, in your own gentle manner. In other words, we need to restir this situation here. This is too something here. This is not there. So, fear and depression. Fear is an anxiety of things aren't going to work out, or I'm not sort of rewarded, incentivized, or it's not going to do anything for me, which is flawed thinking. So realizing it's going to liberate you and give you a feeling of energy and awakening and a sort of an expanded inner space, which can help you make room for more, which is very healing and liberating. And just like Roosevelt, she saw the need to support refugees, in other words, people who didn't have their needs met, and affirmed the right to education, shelter, and Medicare. So, Tom Petty, you don't have to live like a refugee. Wow, all these things are starting to come together. These are famous quotes or things that have made it into music. In other words, fear and anxiety. Do you wake up with your body hurting, or do you feel that you're just sort of, going through the routine? Or do you feel, that you are liberated? Do you feel that you have what you need? Do you hear, and oftentimes it might be nutrition, what you need to change. It might need to be your adaptation to what's going on, and you need to get back what has been depleting, but you can only know it once you see it. But it can be very scary for people to look at and say, this was really missing in my life, peace and harmony. I need a kitten, I need a bunny. I didn't even know this. I need a friend. I need to start cooking. I need to start getting this sugar out of my life. I need to get this sugar thought out of my life, or whatever it is, that you need to realize. But if you can answer these questions, then you'll be on the right to a new beginning, a better beginning that will bring better things into your life. Those things that you want that you've buried. It's you're sort of like the internal Pompeii. You got to sort of really get in there and sweep some ashes off to see what has been buried and maybe even sort of frazzled within you. So parts of you that felt frazzled, frantic, not in a great mind state. These are unpleasant, and you don't want to keep these perpetuating. But you can only know what they are once you get back to, once you're well healed, to once you're well composed, to once you can get the perspective, which comes within from self-respect, which comes from humility, and beyond what outside is acknowledging. So in other words, it's an inner dependence where you could not depend on oneself before. It's an awakening to, I have the strength. It's the I am that's opening. It's like creating a new depth or space within that then gets fueled up or fired up or powered up to look at those things which were kept them from not moving, and then moving there. So in a new way. So if that's what we could talk about, that's why it's so important to have the recovery date. So you engender that being, self-respect. So meaning that I respect myself to release myself from this fear. And the 20 things that are making me most afraid of are, I respect myself so much that I'm going to look at what's really causing this uncomfortable feeling. And if it's fear, anxiety, guilt, paranoia, it's going to be here in your solar plexus, your valuation of self. So if in your core, if you don't feel that you're not worth it, then you're going to push away any goodness, value that starts to mount up, because it's going to be incongruent with your self-worth. So it's those people who win the lottery and all of a sudden they find themselves broke. How can you get broke after winning 28 million? I mean, there's all sorts of stories like that. It's because they push away that which equates a self-esteem. So it does not match what they feel about themselves. They don't feel adequate. They don't feel stable. They don't feel good about themselves. They don't have a good sense of themselves. They're corrupted. They feel greedy. They want to live, that life where they want to get away with things. That creates fear. And some people get addicted to that feeling. And that's where the narcissists and psychopaths keep going. They don't care who they do wrong. They don't care who they do dirty. They don't care who they try to cut out, even though they belong. They try to distract you from their antics, from their shenanigans, and not shenanigans, those meaning engineered chaos, meaning they create problems when there are none. And this creates anxiety. This is fear-based. So you can do this in the microcosm, which means within, and it is I believe on a parallel, on a micro without, meaning, very significant correlation, but you must get the leverage and make the decision, like we're saying in the previous video, and if you can really look at what is making you afraid, there comes a time when you really have to look at it and you really have to see what, or what I really feel inadequate about is list 1 through 20. What I feel very guilty about is, okay? And then if you're looking at all this, and then if you get it out in the open, then you can then really work through it. You can really see that was something which required for you to be inhibited, oftentimes for the benefit of another. So you have to really determine, do I want my habits to benefit me, or do I want my habits to go against me? And do I know what those are? Have I looked at them? Have I set myself up for success? So, for example, if you have a lot of anxiety, you really might need to get back to a very relaxed state. You might need to take a salt bath, a very hot steam, get into a very relaxed state, go to a sauna, get in very comfortable clothes. But how can you set yourself up if you say, you're all overwhelmed? If one thing I'm really afraid of going out in relationships is, okay, then realize that's become a real player in your life. And you've put that player into process. You've put that player on your map. You've put that inhibition or that intimidation. So you have dialed that in and you've given your permission, like Eleanor Roosevelt, famous quotes, permission. So once you realize that you have the power to say, whoa, I can't feel guilty about that because that is not mine, and I can't feel drawn or dragged into that or entrapped or enslaved or have my energy sort of brought down. So instead, I'm going to work from an elevation of being state and acknowledging and recognizing this, like the work that you're doing in these videos. And what does that feel like when you really can hold yourself up? When you when you see those ballerinas on the Nutcracker, men and women, I mean, they're coming from a state of grace. I mean, yeah, they've got it at the toes, they've got it at the fingertips, but they also really have it at the core. So the core, you've got to kind of get in alignment, especially with your true I need, I deserve, I love, and realize why it's there, and then get rid of all of that you don't want, don't need, don't like, or were fooled into, or it no longer suits you. You've outgrown it now. It no longer, and then how can you get it out of your environment so you can breathe easy? And then new things can come in, but you can only look at the stable when you can know that you can benefit from the stable. So when a good relationship comes in your life, are you going to, hurt them and beat them up because you are going to push them away? You don't feel like you deserve something good. Are you going to be downcast because of the false judgments or fear that have been instilled on you? We need to remove those entirely, but you need to do that within you, an internal locus of control. So this is beyond distraction. This is, really getting into those B states. So these are B states that you have to set yourself up for. So if you need to look at something, And you really need a miracle in your life. You really need a liberation. You really need something really amazing to occur, the answer to a prayer that would really make you happy, that you really want, that you haven't had fulfilled maybe for years in the making. If there's a miracle that could come about in your life, what could it be? What would it feel like? And can you live there? Why have you, and even if you don't know it, you're part of a greater picture that is ready there to deliver it. And if you can have the faith, of the poet, which is really knowing that, that is the universal law of fulfillment. Once you own it and have that, that all commitment where it has your heart for the good, not for the bad, not for the evil, which you know what it is. Not that you have a passion for what's not good anymore. No, that no longer will take away from your passion. Your passion will thrive once you eliminate a lot of those fears and judgments in ways that you had stopped yourself from growing, where you had literally stopped through disbelief or not seeing the reward that could be there for you. But it's very difficult to lay it out and really give yourself, if you don't know someone who can see better for you, then you can see better for yourself. So oftentimes narcissistic relationships or psychopathic relationships, businesses, companies, they want to use, they want to take from, they want to give you less than you're worth so that they can profit. I mean, those are relationships where people have become very bewildered. They found that in the pandemic, maybe their salary was affected, and other people in their relationship or life, bye-bye, you're not, I've known very many people, and I'm sure this is a very standard thing. This and this happens. If you're not making the money, I got to find someone else who is. If you're not giving me this lifestyle, I'm not willing to adjust. Together we got to make it. So that's part of the adventure, and not freaking out or going, ballistic. If you have to learn some things or become normal or have come to the table, come to Kumbaya times, come to Jesus, come to your own altar, come to where you're afraid of self-sacrifice, or you're afraid of something being lost or letting or go or not being enough. You're afraid to see a 0 when you're really a solid, when you're really doing yourself solid there, when you're really, a 10, when you're really, but you're giving yourself a 0 for some reason. And stop that. Just stop. Because if you're bottoming out where you could be doing something a little bit more, realize there's something you need to give to yourself first, which is a self-gift, which is something like you need to say, hey, I need then a man cave or a spa room or a painting fantasy room, a recovery room, or an office where I can go. It can be a whole room if you're lucky. It can be just a new desk that you get, that you put with certain items, tools, sayings, cards, feedback, where you're getting that together. But you need to have that go-to place rather than just letting it sour away at your being, or making people bitter, or living in unhappiness or anger. A lot of people get addicted to these high elevated states. For a lot of people, though, it is not beneficial. For a lot of people, they are more sensitive. They don't like to watch constantly negative news. They don't learn from that. They don't benefit. It does not feed their soul to be constantly absorbing this, or become, it's just like these horrific scenes and it's just on the television when there's a reality going on. So if you can realize, there's a reality, and can you come to gratitude for some sort of semblance, and then come to that relaxation where you're getting yourself prepared, for that better B state. It's a empowered state. So how do you want to feel? Eleanor Roosevelt, the quote, I am just trying to find it. Permission quote. You have to realize, because there is a listen, no one can make you feel inferior without your consent. That is Eleanor Roosevelt. No one can make you feel inferior without your consent. Eleanor Roosevelt. Wow. If someone said you this, you that, and then you said, yeah, go at it for me, you're right. Nope. You have to say no. You have to have a comeback. No, I don't consent to feeling like this. No, I don't consent to these anger outbursts. I don't consent to this emotional neglect or abuse or this language or living like this or being cold or being too hot or being unfed emotionally, spiritually, physically, psychologically, or financially. I don't consent to this. I don't consent to feeling inferior. And you might need to write that out 27 times for 9 days in a row. I don't consent to feeling inferior. And it doesn't matter who you are. Anyone can be made to feel that way. A child, you can be made to feel inferior. In China, if you're a woman, we want a boy, a male child. You're not. And then, so can you imagine? Even all the wisdom inherent, I'm just giving an example. But if that child, that little seed of greatness, that little child was then, since you're a female, you'll never amount to anything. You're just to this. Don't cry. We're going to feed you the gruel. We're going to feed you the porridge. We're not going to give you good, nutritious. We're going to keep you in a room. We're going to teach you only this. You can never make your own this. You'll always be dependent. And then if they taught the boy, oh, you're golden. You've got to, you'll have, you're an honor to our family. You are our chosen one because you can carry on this or you can carry on. And then they're treated like that from the get-go. The very other child, if they were treated like that, then female could have carried on the name. They could have done but it's all in the treatment of that very environment, especially that which is right around you. And I talk about in your proximity. And then people are very afraid to learn that they can inhabit this environment safely or have a way to grow and expand and that not live in these mediocre, dulled out, gloomy states, that they don't have to do these self-sabotaging behaviors. And you better get to know what those are. And you can ask yourself without criticizing, the most self-sabotaging behaviors I have are 1 through 10. Not looking at my bank balance, spending too much on coffee, oversleeping, eating too much sugars, not eating enough or not reading enough or not eating enough of a well-balanced diet. You have to get to know this and you have to develop that rapport with self to get out of anxiety and depression. But the rapport with self, the very, needy, sensitive person, needy self, see that there was no rapport with that well-healed individual. We're using that, you're well-healed. What does that mean? Eleanor Roosevelt, write it today. No one can make you feel inferior without your consent. In fact, it would be interesting to note how many times during your day today do you find that someone is trying to make you feel inferior because they're angry, they're upset, they're in a bad spot, they have some problem, financial, otherwise, health, and they're trying to make you feel inferior, they're trying to dish it up on you? No, thank you. I have already had enough of that. I have consent. I didn't have a boundary up. I didn't have a standard up. I'm sorry. I got to have a good boundary here. We talk about this as an emotional boundary. Up, someone is making me, you could now be making yourself feel inferior without your consent. See, that's what happens. Narcissistic relationships, psychopathic relationships, they thrive by making others feel inferior, less than, not giving them a chance, being angry, not giving them the floor for a moment, not allowing them to speak up, telling them da 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 da. They will never amount to anything. They try to speak. Don't allow other people to speak your truth into existence. Excuse me. I don't think the world will work that way without your consent. So if you have allowed the world to run your life, you don't have what it takes, the law of the lid. If you need to get something and have something to improve yourself, why don't you look to it? If you feel too inferior, weak, meek, you don't deserve to have a friend, to eat well, to have a relationship, to have a puppy dog, you don't feel well enough to not have to have about yourself, that you need to live a false life. I think a lot of people, as I say, they've got their ladder up the wrong tree. Or the wrong wall. In other words, what they're pursuing ain't giving them the fruits of their happiness anymore. They're like, this is a rotten apple. Like, this is disgusting. Why am I still eating this? It's like people who still smoke. They're like, why am I, still smoking? Because they're addicted. They do not have power over that negative habit. So, such is the negative habit of thinking that will lead to other proliferate situations in the body, the psychology, your philosophy, what you end up doing, seeing, and absorbing from your environment, and even seeing and becoming and being in your future. So you got to give life a chance to come and support you. But if you don't do it, because then that feeling of being supported is not congruent with your inner being. In other words, if you have been victimized or feel a victim, when support comes there and say, you're a hero, and that doesn't match up. Oh no, I've been told I'm a terrible person. I'm unbelievable. I'm ugly. I'm worth cheating on. I am worth lying to. I'm worth not being there for. I'm worth, nothing. If you have all that, then you're going to attract all that into your body, and that's going to send out an electronic message. I don't, and so when that positive comes, that good thought, that good person, that good, maybe I can do this, comes along, push it away. No, I will never turn this around. I will never have this. I can never have that. I can never have my life look like this. I can never have my life look like this. I can never feel wealthy. I can never feel in love. I will always feel this attack. So that's like chronic anxiety. That can become and proliferate into a lot of disorders. You might have to say no thank you to anxiety. You literally might need to put your hand up and get a physical expression this is about developing and giving you tools to help liberate you. So you have to develop the rule in the place of what they call in psychology is the place of metacognition. Your ability, your higher order thinking, your ability to see what you're thinking about. So in other words, when you feel fearful, also to acknowledge that. So to acknowledge, I acknowledge I'm afraid of. I acknowledge I'm really afraid of, because you can have false fears that are holding you back, especially, after the pandemic. You might not feel that you have enough information, or you might not done this for a while. You have not seen people. You have, gone through some things, and now you feel some trepidation. You don't know if it's good for your health. You don't know if it's going to turn out. So this causes a lot of this inhibition and anxiety. So you're responsible. You have set that into motion. You have set that tension into motion. And you can also look at it and say, the 10 things that really set this into motion was, the 10 things that really set this into motion was the need to, and it's usually some external need, which causing this, the need, I got to be a woman, I got to be a man, I got to do it myself, I got to provide, I'm the woman, I've got to do it all, I've got to be it all, I've got to be A, B, C, D, E, I got to do it all. And the man, I want a woman who can do it all, and then I got to be a man. And then some of these order thinkings, if you don't feel really that sort of I am, you won't then have the thought that like, I need to protect myself, or this is unwise, or I don't need to stoop to this level. I need to raise my boundaries and standards. I went too far then. Things were not as I had intended. What do I need to do to rein it in, or rein my relationships in? And how can I put some subtle, gentle breaks so that this can unfold in a beautiful, kind, gentle manner, men and women? So you have to get prepared. And I talk about the senses. So for example, if you have depression, that is repression. Oftentimes, there's been so much overwhelm that it's caused you to feel weighted down and heavy. And a lot of neurochemical states can come as a rise from this. So you need to get this recalibrated. You might need to see a doctor. You might need to look at the aches and pains that are truly going on in your body and getting some professional, advice. But what can you do for yourself? Take an Epsom salt bath. Get some, so if depression is holding you back and anxiety, you have to look at your musculature. How are you holding yourself? What are you giving yourself during the day? If you are hurting, are you just, popping Tylenol? Or are you saying, let me get back for a moment. Let me come back into my being. Let me think this out more fuller. And let me let me resolve this anxiety. And let me, get really comfortable with looking at this. And so let me find ways that I can really encourage this relaxed state. And how do you do that? Do you do that by cycling? Do you do that by getting yourself a bike? It doesn't have to be a Peloton, but maybe you need to accommodate and get yourself walking and counting. Do you need to do 50 steps every day? Do you need to do 1,000 steps? What is your commitment to yourself? How can you make the change? Because it is that free will, which oftentimes is you've opted out of that when you've been taken advantage of, or that was allowed to be zipped, pushed down. You don't have a free will. You're listening to the media, this advertisement. You have to be Kim Kardashian. You have to be Paris Hilton. Otherwise, you're judged, or men, you got to be Chuck Norris, whatever, the Marlboro Man. And maybe you are, all that's great. But you can own it, but you don't have to impress it. Being will speak volumes. But oftentimes, these other relationships will drag you into situations that were not for your best interest. And oftentimes people then did not realize that they found themselves into either a defiling of their being or a violation of boundaries and standards, disempowering themselves, filling them with fear and anxiety that they don't know how or to get their needs met. And so this is very debilitating. So a pandemic or something as serious, can cause you to feel inadequate or inferior. So what are the 10 steps you can take today to get your I am as a person of worth, so that can lift you up? What do I need to do? I need to hold myself better. I need to dress myself better. I need to give myself time to look at a book, a newspaper, instead of being distracted. I need to turn I would like to learn the skill of another language, or chair yoga, or something that I can do to look at and create a new change in my life that I can do within, that is coming from a place of free will, because that oftentimes is what is oppressed. You are put in too much of a learned helpless or learned hopeless state. Noticed I said the word learned, and noticed I learned and helpless and hopeless. Where did you learn that? Where did you pick that up? And is that really the case? Who were the bad teachers or the bad actors? What, negative things did they try to teach you or drag you into that you don't want to be on that side of the fence No, thank you very much. I am good enough. I am a person of self-worth. I now have a stop point where instead of getting, anxiety, I'm going to calm. I'm going to look at it and say, I am excited. See, that is reframing. I am excited. I'm excited. And you don't even have to say what it is for. I am excited. I'm excited. I'm excited. I'm excited, and I can handle that. Instead of feeling anxiety, you can say, I'm excited. And you have to realize that you don't then have to take the steps of fear that led you to the wrong swamp path or where you did not want to be or feel or got like things got chaotic. Avoid that whole situation. Whatever propelled you there, say, no, thank you very much. I don't want to be that way anymore. I remember there came one time in my 20s when I was so busy, like trying to get, I had just graduated college and in my school and in my place of living, trying to get dishes clean. We didn't have the internet. We didn't have access to a lot of these resources, but I remember the hurried and rushed way that I was feeling. And I'm like, I came to a point where I was putting the knives in the drawer, and I'm like trying to get everything clean and organized. And I said, in that moment, I do not want to be this way. I will never do that again. And sure enough, I never did that again. I never got angry while putting the knife in the drawer. I said, that's ridiculous. I'm not going to be driven by that. That's not me. I'm not going to be on the Jerry Springer show, throwing chairs, throwing looks, yelling, screaming, proving this, proving that, whatever. No, thank you. That is not me. If that is your distraction, that might be all your well and good, but for my sake, I don't want to become that person. And oftentimes the relationship or an entity that is psychopathic or narcissistic in its structure can be unvalidating. It can be unacknowledging of your worth. So it'll allow that so that's where you have to say, that's the glitch in the system. And that's where I'm going to pick up and say, hey, I've got myself here. This is how I want to be here for me. And I see how this had come about. I see how this became germinated into being. And that's okay. I don't want that type of way of being or behaving or acting. I'm not going to go down. I'm not going to go back. And I can just stay here. And so, but you have to prepare yourself. So for example, if you really need to relax, you might need to prepare a salt bath. What are you doing then? Are you giving yourself a chance? Do you have it written down in your calendar? Have you purchased the salt? Do you have the scented bubbles, man and female? They have all sorts of gel that you can use. Do you have your, because oftentimes if you're not acting in your best interest, it is because people have been treating you in a callous manner. So they've been insensitive to you. And oftentimes the result of that type of treatment in these settings can be a callousness towards self, an unloving towards self, a dissociation from self or what is in one's best interest. So resensitizing yourself from the ground up, from the head down. Oh yeah, it's about to get good. So you really have to indulge yourself. You have to give yourself the recovery gift. I talk about this. Once you've made a certain milestone in your healing, you give yourself a gift that's a meaning and a message to you that I am. I've made it. It's kind of like you might consider it, I guess, maybe an Alcoholics Anonymous. There's no comparison. But in other words, it's a recovery gift. There's no association with that. This is something that I have found as a tool to be very helpful because you need to give messages in your environment which will help to nurture and develop that B state, which is in your best interest. So if you don't have those in your immediate environment, then you need to make sure that that is around. So you're feeding yourself with that, including what is the media that you're consuming, all the internet that you're consuming. And so, for example, so if you're, so we talk about how do you become incallous to self. So realizing you've become too numb to looking at that. And so saying, I've been where I'm seeing my anxiety or my depression, things had become too calloused out, or I was becoming too callous towards self based on that. So I'm going to become more aware, more open, and bring a little bit more openness and gentleness and healing, and what I would say, acceptance or acknowledgement of being able to develop and heal, and being able to kind of come from that within. But you have to lay it out. In other words, if you're going for that bath, do you have the salts? Do you have the scented water? Do you have a bathrobe? Do you have something that you put your hair up in? Do you, for example, you don't have to use this, but something do you put your hair up? Do you put nurturing oils in your hair? Aveda has a great one, Dry Remedy. There are all sorts of, and then what little oils can you sprinkle in your water? Almond oil, apricot oil is very nourishing. It'll help. And then can you then exfoliate your skin? Get the dead off so you stop feeling so inhuman. I am, a swear by, and how can you get like the plastic out of your environment? So start throwing some stuff away. But whatever this dermasuri, this little mitt thing, I swear by this dermasuri for exfoliating. It's like this sheer mitt thing, and it just has like a very gentle exfoliating. And if you use it on your face with like really good, nice gel, men and women, maybe you guys have so much of a beard, you're hiding behind it. You might need to get a new facial hair look, guys. You might need to do something different with get a clean look, and really get that all clean and exfoliated, your whole body, your back, your feet. You need to get your body tingling. Like I said, get this natural organic mitt, men and women. Really use it on your skin, your feet. Hit one of these long ones. Are you setting yourself up for success? Are you giving yourself some feel-good feelings? Have you changed up, do you have fleece clothing? Do you have silk clothing? Do you have comfortable clothing? Are you wearing stuff that doesn't make you feel good? Do you have stuff around that just makes you feel dull and drab, and you need some yellow, you need some red, you might need some this, that? What can you do, and what do you need to get out? Okay? And then so that you can be at a better, more alert, more harmonic state. And especially for those people who have been made to feel inferior, who were scapegoated, who were told you're the problem for everything, who don't have that positive self-esteem, we need to nurture, grow, and develop that from the inside out. So really a good way to do that is resensitize yourself, indulge yourself, not in the negative or destructive ways, but in the positive, nurturing, and uplifting ways, and making a new decision. Instead, So, making a new decision instead of taking a shower and just doing the same old, instead, instead of just feeling dull, or anxiety, I say, I am so excited that that is called reframing, a very powerful thing that you can do. Instead of anxiety, I am so liberated to, I am so liberated by, I am so looking forward to 1 through 20. We need to alchemize that feeling. It's in the same spot. Where is your anxiety? Where is your pain? Transmute, alchemize your I am so scared to I am so excited. It's the same thing. It's the flip side of the coin. You need to look to the head rather than to the tail. Let's look ahead. So I am so excited to whatever it is. I'm so excited to take a bubble bath. I'm so excited to start a new exercise routine. I'm so excited to get a new book. I'm so excited to get a new relationship. I'm so excited to take care of myself. I am so excited. I'm so excited. I am so excited. Okay? Or Or you can say, I'm so afraid, I'm so afraid. But if you can change it to say, I'm so excited. I'm so excited that now. I'm so excited that now. I'm so excited that now. And if you like this, click the like button. And if you can transmute that energy, it'll be feeling a lot better, and you can control it, and you need to set it up. So get things lined up in your appointment book. Become a fearless dreamer instead of those decisions. So find those moments where you can pick yourself up, and then instead you get a rock hold and you get a grip. Instead I compose myself. Instead I learn. Instead I am calm. Instead I do. What are these other changes that you can make that will softly and gently get you there safely without, and help you gently leave that sort of trauma existence behind? You can do it. Only you decide where you want to put it and how far you want it to be. If you want trauma to be in your life all the time, you can keep it going. If you want it to be generating just a little bit of warm, gentle fuel, then you can live that, feel that, and be that as well. This is your body. This is your buddy, Peace and Harmony, with you here today. And I hope that these videos do help. Please if you like this content, please hit the like button, and please subscribe to get more content, and please share if there's other people who would get on well with this as well. Have a beautiful day.